Today, we are once again doing another tier list. We're going to talk about what the strongest Pokemon in Generation 3 is. All of the strongest Pokemon. And I've changed it up this time. This sets the bar a little higher and a little lower all at the same time. I'm going to be removing all pre-evolutions. It's going to be fully evolved and mega evolutions only. Period. That's what I'm doing. Fully evolved and mega evolutions only. That's the goal here. If you guys are excited and have been enjoying the videos, I want to let you all know one thing. I look at the analytics. 70% of people who watch videos on this channel are not subscribed. So what are we doing? It's one button. All you got to do is press one button, and then you'll never miss anything from me again. Now, if you didn't enjoy the video, different story, but I'm sure more than 70% of you enjoyed the video. Or I'm sure the majority of that 70% enjoyed the video. But let's get into it. I'm wasting too much time. Let's go. You guys have all clicked off the video by now. Now we can go. Okay, look. Let's start with Sceptile. Personally, my favorite of all the starters. But because it's just a pure grass type, and its moves aren't really super great until later, it's actually the worst of all the starters, and it's only a B tier Pokemon, in my personal opinion. I think that Sceptile is good. I think that Sceptile can do some really good things for you, but he's still a B tier Pokemon. A for Mega Sceptile. Mega Sceptile gave you what you wanted out of Sceptile. Not to mention it's a really nice design. It's Sceptile, but it's much stronger. I think out of all the Mega designs, it's probably the most disappointing one, but otherwise it's completely fine. Maya just groaned. Did you guys hear that? Why are you groaning? Why are you groaning? She's groaning right now. Let's talk about Blaziken. Blaziken is an S tier Pokemon, guys. We know that's the case. It was the first firefighting type before they did it too much, but it was the best version of it. The moves that it got were perfect. The ability that it had was perfect. The typing was perfect for all of the gyms and all of the Pokemon that you were facing. If you picked Blaziken in your first run through Gen 3, you had a cakewalk. You did. No doubt about it. You had a cakewalk. And Mega Blaziken was just everything you wanted out of Blaziken, but cooler and better. Simple as that. Swampert had the best typing in the game. It was the second ever water and ground type behind Quagsire, but it was a better version of that. It had the best typing in the game. One weakness, just to grass, and you don't encounter much grass in Generation 3. Not much at all. It was such a good starter. It's an S tier Pokemon. Mega Swampert but better, but I would actually still take Blaziken over it. Mightyena is another interesting one because Mightyena it's a dark type, and dark types were just terrible in Gen 3 because they were all special attackers with physical stats. But if you take that out of it, Mightyena did grow to be a better Pokemon, but honestly, compared to what we have here, it's definitely a C tier Pokemon. Mightyena does what you need it to early in the game, and then it falls off really hard, unfortunately. Linoone is another example of a Pokemon that does a lot of good things for you early, but kind of just falls apart. I really like the Pokemon, but it just doesn't quite give you what you want out of it when you first evolve it from a Zigzagoon. It does get a lot of good TMs, but being a physical attacker with really mediocre stats, it's going to be a C tier Pokemon for me. Beautifly and Dustox, let's talk about them. At level 10, all the way to about level 20, these Pokemon are actually some of the best Pokemon available outside of your starter. But then they just fall off a cliff. I think Beautifly gets better moves than Dustox does, and I would consider it to be better than Dustox considering that, but it doesn't really do much else for you, unfortunately. Here's two other disappointing Pokemon. Ludicolo and Shiftry. I like Ludicolo. I think its design is cool. I think its typing is cool. I think it's incredibly weak and not defensive enough to make up for it. It's a D tier Pokemon. Shiftry is slightly better, and it has better typing. But I think it belongs right there in C tier. I actually would say it's better than Mightyena. I think that's fair to say about Shiftry. As Maya licked my mic. I'm sure you guys heard that. My apologies. She just wants to be part of the group. Do you want to be part of the group? Do you want to be part of the group? Do you want to be part of the group? Okay. Swellow. The best flying type in the game. Besides Rayquaza, obviously. It's an A tier Pokemon. It's fast. It's strong. It gets great moves. It's available early in the game. Everybody had a Swellow on their team in their first run through Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. If you didn't play the game. Pelipper. Modern day Pelipper, I think, is a lot worse than Pelipper is now. I think Pelipper in Gen 3 was pretty decent. I thought it got good moves. I thought that it could do a lot of good things for you. Unfortunately, being a special attacking type in water with a physical attacking type in flying did not help it in Gen 3, but I do think it was still pretty decent back then. Is it good though? No. It's still a C tier Pokemon. Gardevoir is an S tier Pokemon. Gardevoir is everything people wanted in a psychic type. It is the best psychic type since Alakazam after Generation 2 didn't introduce much that was all that great. And it did a lot of great things for you. Gardevoir is incredible. Then Generation 6 came around and they said, hey Gardevoir, do you want fairy typing? And for some reason they chose and decided that that was a good idea. So then Gardevoir got fairy typing. Even better. Mega Gardevoir, right there. Better, but not better than anything else I have above it in my personal opinion. Masquerain, we don't even need to talk about it. I mean, Bug Water is an interesting type, and then you said, I'm going to just, make Bug Water just not exist. I'm just going to be all right, I'm going to be Bug Flying now. Another Bug Flying, except this one has water moves from the time it was a Surskit, and doesn't really learn much else after that. Disappointing. Breloom. Breloom was really good. It's a B tier Pokemon. Adding fighting to grass was actually unique because both of them were physical types at the time. And the fact that they were both physical types actually made a lot of things work for it in a really good way. It learned great moves for both typings, and it had Effect Spore, which was a really good ability, especially when you're getting hit by physical attacks all the time. What's next? Slacking. Oh boy, my boy Slacking. This guy is a monster. He is obviously an S tier Pokemon, and if it wasn't for his ability, he would be the best of this group in my opinion. But there are ways to work around it that make him incredible. Slacking, obviously, because of his ability, was given incredible stats as a way to balance him, but there are ways to work around it. As a matter of fact, if you're only going to be able to attack every other turn, why not put Hyper Beam on him? Why not put Giga Impact on him? Which is exactly what a lot of people did in Generation 3, including myself. They kind of worked around it because those moves are only, once every 2 turns anyway. So I think that worked out really well. Ninjask and Shedinja. Interesting Pokemon. Lots of potential. Not much there. Ninjask is a speed boost Pokemon. It's a B tier Pokemon. It does a lot of good things with speed boost. It gets double team. It gets Swords Dance. You can set up on this thing. But it's very difficult to do so when in one hit you die no matter what. It's extremely difficult to properly get set up. Shedinja, on the other hand, is a low C. Its ability obviously makes it usable. But because it's Bug and Ghost, it actually loses a lot of resistances and gains more super effectiveness with both Dark and Ghost being a part of it. It just has too many weaknesses that it's just too easy to counter, so it won't work. Exploud. I love Exploud. Exploud is another B tier Pokemon. This guy is a monster. This guy can one-shot you like it's no tomorrow, but he has no defenses to make up for it and not very good moves until later in the game. Exploud is good. He's not great. I would say the same thing about Hariyama. Hariyama is an excellent fighting type. It's very bulky, but it doesn't necessarily get as much power as some other fighting types do in the game. So as much as I like Hariyama, it doesn't fit. Nosepass. If we're talking about Roxanne's Nosepass in the first gym, it's an S tier Pokemon. That thing is so hard to defeat. But if we're talking about Nosepass in the grand scheme of things, once you're past, level 15, this is a C tier Pokemon. Doesn't do a whole lot for you. It is a little bulky, but it eventually gets countered really hard. Delcatty is a D tier Pokemon. This is your generic normal type, basically a worse version of Meowth in Persian. This was put out for all the girls who like cats, and no one else cares for it otherwise. Sableye. The first of its kind, Dark and Ghost type. 0 weaknesses. For that alone, it's extremely powerful. The fact that the fairy type even exists is because this type is in the game, and they had to balance it. But it's still a Sableye, and it's still a B tier Pokemon. And Mega Sableye is still a B tier Pokemon. It's still a Sableye at the end of the day. It doesn't do a whole lot more. Mawile is the worst Pokemon in Generation 3. Let's talk about pre-fairy typing. This Pokemon shouldn't have even been in the game pre-fairy typing. It does nothing for you. They introduced Mega Mawile, which was a better Pokemon. It wasn't a perfect Pokemon, but it was a better Pokemon. And it probably goes about right there. Aggron was the physical wall of the generation, and it did a lot of good things for you. It did have a bad weakness to fighting, as well as one to water, but that was about it. Otherwise, that Rock and Steel type really held up, and they did the same thing with Bastiodon in the following generation. Aggron's the best wall in the game. I don't see any other walls that are available in Generation 3 that do quite this much. Aggron is a monster, and Mega Aggron is even better. Medicham. This was disappointing. This was very disappointing. This was one of the most disappointing Pokemon of the generation, in my personal opinion. Because there was so much potential with a fighting and psychic type that just didn't really work out. It unfortunately just took too much damage, and it wasn't fast enough to make up for it. And Medicham is definitely a C tier Pokemon. Mega Medicham, probably right there, is where I would place it. Sorry, I keep turning around and looking at Maya because she's just having fun on the floor, and I'm making sure that she does not chew things. Where were we? Manectric. One of the only electric types introduced into the generation. As a matter of fact, it's the only electric type introduced in the generation, and it is a good one. It's extremely fast. It's extremely powerful. It does a lot of great things for you. Manectric definitely is an A-tier Pokemon, and Mega Manectric is an A-tier Pokemon as well. And I would actually put Mega Manectric right here. A lot of good things work for him. All right, let's just put these two in there. They have abilities that don't work unless they're with each other, and there's only one double battle in the game that actually is required and matters. So, yeah, otherwise they're just Pikachu clones with no power. And Volbeat and Illumise. Actually, it's pronounced Illumise, even though nobody pronounces it that way. This thing looks like an air mattress. It is an air mattress. All it does is just die. It's going to go right there. I don't really see anywhere else to put it. Its moveset sucks. It doesn't get much. Volbeat, on the other hand, is a Pokemon that can do something for you because it has Tail Glow. And just because of that, it's up in the C tier. Tail Glow, plus it also gets Signal Beam and some other good moves. I think that works really well. Underrated Pokemon coming up. Swalot. Swalot is, in my opinion, a B tier. Swalot is very underappreciated. Its special defense is super high. It gets every good poison move in the game, plus Amnesia, plus Yawn, plus Rest, plus Snore. It does a lot of really, really good things for you, and it survives really, really, really long. I love this Pokemon. I think it's great. Sharpedo is a perfect example of what a Gen 3 Dark type needed to be. It needed to be fused with a special type. That way, it actually worked out really well. The problem is that Sharpedo was a physical attacker still. They really messed up with that. They really did not understand how that was supposed to work. But let's take physical special split away. Let's make sure it's modern day Sharpedo, and modern day Sharpedo does good things for you. It is definitely a B tier Pokemon. I put it up in the high B tier, and I put Mega right next to it. I think that's a good place for Sharpedo. Wailord has a lot of health, and it uses Water Spout because of that, lots of health. And that's all it really gives you. This thing is Chansey without the special defense that Chansey has. That's all it really is, and it's going to be a B tier Pokemon. Camerupt has a lot of potential. I actually really like Camerupt because of its moveset and because of its typing that works out really well for it. What I don't like about it is that its typing also hurts it defensively because it gets so many weaknesses, including a 4 times weakness to water. And because of that alone, I can't put Camerupt over Wailord. I think Camerupt has to go right there. Mega Camerupt, slightly better. I'd probably put him here. I think that's fine. Torkoal. It is a wall of a fire type. That is all it is. No offensive power at all. It's difficult when you're playing Pokemon Emerald for the first time and you have to take out Flannery's Torkoal, but it is not a good Pokemon in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't do a whole lot for you. Here's the most disappointing Psychic type in the game. This is what everybody didn't want and still got. This is basically a Drowsy clone. When you look at it, it's Grumpig. And Grumpig is not the best Pokemon. It can do some good things for you. It gets decent moves, but it has just no defense and doesn't really get a good ability or good speed to make up for much of that. So it's just disappointing. Spinda is a fun Pokemon. It gets decent moves, but it doesn't really give you a lot of offensive ability. I would put Spinda about right there. I think it's actually better than some other normal types in the game, but not by a whole lot. Flygon is an A-tier Pokemon. I know some people probably wanted me to put him in S, but I just can't get around that. I think Flygon can do a lot of good things for you, but it doesn't get as many good dragon moves as you expect. And it does eventually get Dragon Dance, I think, like late. But if you're playing through the game, this is not the best Pokemon in the world. If you're talking competitive, it's probably an A-tier Pokemon. I think that's a fitting place for Flygon. Should have gotten a Mega, by the way. It definitely should have gotten a Mega. Cacturne. Grass and Dark type. A physical type mixed with a special type. Didn't work in the time, but if we're talking post-physical special split, it definitely was a B-tier Pokemon. I would put it about right there next to Breloom. I think if used properly, it was pretty good. Learns a lot of good moves, has a decent ability, can do a lot of great things for you. I definitely like Cacturne as a Pokemon. Altaria is just a wall. It's not an offensive dragon type at all. As a matter of fact, it's probably one of the worst dragon types in the game. It doesn't do a whole lot more for you than that. Altaria is really just a wall, and Mega Altaria is a bigger wall. They didn't really add much else to it, unfortunately. Zangoose is probably the best pure normal type in the game that isn't slacking. I think that it has a lot of offensive power. It just lacks a decent amount of speed. Zangoose is probably going to be B tier if I had to pick something. I think I'm going to put Zangoose right there. I think that's a fair place for him. Seviper is one of the most underrated poison types in the game. And it's an A tier Pokemon in my personal opinion. It gets a lot of great moves. It does a lot of good things for you. And if it weren't for the fact that it didn't evolve, it might have even been an S tier if it could evolve one time. But it doesn't evolve at all, and it is what it is. But it is, I think it's where it belongs. Solrock and Lunatone. Solrock is slightly better than Lunatone, in my personal opinion, because it can learn Sunny Day, which then you can set up with Solar Beam on it, potentially, with it being a special attacker, or you can have something else with Solar Beam, but it gets Sunny Day. It does something for you, right? It's better. But Lunatone, also slightly worse, also still right there. They're two of the worst Pokemon in the game. They're very disappointing. Whiscash, another water ground type, gets a lot of good moves, gets a lot of good moves. It gets a good ability. It does a lot of good things for you. Because you encounter it so late in the game, a lot of people tend to forget it exists, but Whiscash is very good. It is a B-tier Pokemon. I would put it right there in my personal opinion. Not as powerful as Swampert is, but it does do good things for you. Crawdon is a physical water type. You don't really see too many of those back in Generation 3. You see a lot more of them now. I don't think a physical water type is a bad thing to have. And I think Crawdon is pretty decent. My only problem with him is that a lot of the water moves in Generation 3 didn't really fit him. But then when the physical special split happened, he got to be a much better Pokemon. And he's definitely an A-tier Pokemon. I think Crawdon does a lot of good things for you. And I'm going to put Claydol in A as well. I think those two are very similar in power when I think about them. Where like they don't overwhelm me. They don't underwhelm me. They're kind of just really solid. That's the way I kind of consider them. Generation 3, in my opinion, has the worst fossil Pokemon probably in all of Pokemon. Both of them are walls rather than physical attackers, and they don't really do a whole lot for you. Cradily is a C tier, and so is Armaldo. They're probably just because of their ability to be walls right here. but I don't really see anywhere else for them to go. Cradily has better typing, gets better abilities than Armaldo does. It just makes more sense, in my personal opinion. Milotic. Milotic is an S tier Pokemon. It gets Marvel Scale, which is an incredible ability, and it's basically Gen 3's take on Gyarados. That's what they decided to do. They decided to put Feebas in the game and then have it evolve into something incredibly powerful, just like before. I'd argue it probably needed to be a Dragon type, just like Gyarados needed to be a Dragon type, but I'll live with it. I think it was very, very solid. It's a very good Pokemon. Cast Form was a fun gimmick that had no power whatsoever, as much as they tried. 0 power. It's one of the worst Pokemon in the game. Kecleon is right there with it, but it's slightly better. And I put him right there. I think he's better than that. I think he's better than that. I think right here is where he belongs. I think that's a fair place for Kecleon to be. Baynet. Baynet is a Pokemon that nobody used. It was the ghost type everybody neglected in this generation. Everybody wanted Dusclops. Dusclops was a better Pokemon. Baynet existed, but nobody wanted to use it. Is Baynet an okay Pokemon? Yes. Is it a great Pokemon? No. It is a C tier Pokemon, and it's going to go right there. Mega Baynet, slightly better. Right there. Didn't do a whole lot more, didn't change a whole lot. Nobody asked for a Mega Baynet. Made no sense why you even bothered to make it, but they did. Dusclops is another C tier Pokemon. It's better than Baynet, but it's not much more. Not till they gave it an evolution of Dusknoir did it really come into form, unfortunately. But I do like the Pokemon. I think that it gets good moves. I think that it can do a lot of good things for you. Tropius. Tropius is a Pokemon that's near and dear to my heart. I used this the first time I ever played through the game, and I actually really like the Pokemon. But just because I like the Pokemon doesn't mean that I want to use it. And what I mean by that is it won't help me. It's not a strong Pokemon at all. It's going to be probably B tier. That might be slightly biased, but I think its type is good and its defensive ability is really, really solid. That's what makes me put it there. Chimecho. I was just talking about how Grumpig's the worst Psychic type in the game. I take it back. I forgot you existed. Chimecho. You go right there. I would take you over Solrock and Lunatone just because you get better abilities, but that's all. And then they gave you a pre-evolution for some reason when you needed an evolution. I didn't understand what the ideology was behind that. It's a terrible Pokemon that people just forget exists. Absol. We all know Absol is one of the best Pokemon in the game. It's an S tier Pokemon. It's probably going to be right up there with Slaking, and Mega Absol is going to be right there at the top. I don't see any reason to consider anything else. Absol is an absolute menace. It does so many good things for you in so many different ways. Shout out Absol. You are an incredible Pokemon. Glalie. I like Glalie a lot. I don't think Glalie's perfect, but Glalie is a very good ice type that does a lot of very good things for you. And it's an A tier Pokemon for me. And I think it's going to go right there. Mega Glalie is better. It's not that much better. It's probably about right there. Walrein. This, in my opinion, is a better ice type than Glalie. Walrein has the water typing, which gives it more diversity as well as more resistances. It's bulkier, it gets better moves, and it's a little bit more powerful. Walrein is a beast. Simple as that. Huntail and Gorbis. These are the two most disappointing water types besides one other. There's a lot of bad water types actually in this generation now that I look at it. And I mean a lot of bad ones. Huntail is the better of the two. But he's not like perfect. I think Huntail belongs right behind Pelipper. I think Pelipper is much, much better than Huntail is. Gorbis, on the other hand, is a high D tier Pokemon. It's very bad, and Ludicolo is better than it. All of these are actually better than it. I'd put Gorbis right there. Relicanth is a Pokemon people forget even exists. You get it late in the game. It doesn't do a whole lot, but its typing is decent. It does add more add more weaknesses to him, but it also just kind of helps him be more of a wall, which makes him somewhat useful in some way. So I think he belongs right in front of Nosepass. I think that's fair. We already know what's going on here. We already know what's going on with Luvdisc. This is the worst Pokemon they've ever put in the game. This is the worst Pokemon of this generation. It's going to go right there. There's no reason for Luvdisc to be anywhere else but where I put it. Salamence is an S-tier Pokemon and one of the best ones. No question about it. Salamence is a monster. He gets so many good moves. He does so many good things for you. Salamence is an S-tier Pokemon. Should have given him a Mega Evolution. Metagross, another one of the best Pokemon in the game, but he's more of a low S-tier. Mega Metagross, on the other hand, was where all of the things were fixed, and it was much, much, much better. That's an S-tier Pokemon. Does so many great things for you. Let's talk Regis. I think when you talk about generational legendary trios, that the Regis are actually the most disappointing ones in the game. There's something about the generational legendary trios that do not do much for you in any way, shape, or form in Generation 3. They're bulky, and that's about it. I think you can do some clever things with their movesets, but they're just not as good as other legendaries have been. And as a matter of fact, they're all A tier in the following order. The best is Registeel. The second best is Regirock. The worst is Regice. Latias and Latios. These are S-tier Pokemon, guys. Come on. Did you really think that they wouldn't be? They're better than any other Psychic type in the generation. I'm going to put the Megas in there, too. I mean, of course they are. They're great Pokemon. No question about it. I would take Latias over Latios. Put them there because Latios is more defensive. Kyogre. Kyogre. What are we going to do with Kyogre? Obviously an S-tier Pokemon. It's just a matter of what do I consider Kyogre to be better than? It's better than... I'd put Kyogre there. Primal Kyogre goes there. If we're counting the Primals. The Primals, of course, they're going to go there. Groudon, in my opinion, is worse than Kyogre. I would actually put Groudon... Oops, he is not a C-tier. I should use that for the thumbnail shot. So everybody's like, what did you do to Groudon? I think Groudon belongs here. I don't think Groudon is nearly as good as Kyogre is. I think he lacks a lot of power that Kyogre has. Primal Groudon, of course, is better. Is it that much better? No. Oh, boy. Obviously, guys, there's no question on this one. This is by far and beyond the best Pokemon in the generation. They designed it to be overpowered for a reason. It gets great moves. It gets a great ability. And then they decided, oh, hey, Rayquaza, I'm going to give you a Mega Evolution too. Because why not? You're going to have a Mega Evolution. Why is he getting a Mega Evolution? Exactly. Jirachi is a disappointing legendary Pokemon. Is it still a great legendary Pokemon? Yeah, it's good. It's a good Pokemon. It's just disappointing. I just don't think that it gets enough good moves, and its typing is actually really bad for it because it makes it have to be a little more defensive than physically offensive, which most legendaries are, which was disappointing. Deoxys is basically everything Jirachi wanted to be, but better. And Deoxys is an S-tier Pokemon. So that's the tier list. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to have a conversation, have a debate about why you guys like certain Pokemon or hate certain Pokemon. I love Generation 3. It's my favorite Pokemon generation. It has been for pretty much as long as I've been interested and been a fan of Pokemon. And it was really fun putting some of these guys together into the tier list. If you guys enjoyed the video, please be sure to give a like. And remember what I said before, 70% of people who watch this are not subscribed, which means you probably, more likely than not, are not subscribed. So hit the button. I want to see it. Hit the button. We're looking for 1,000 subscribers. We're working our way up there. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.